So this morning I posted videos that described Western Australia and the government led by the Labor Party and by Roger Cook as a concentration camp, as an experimental digital concentration camp. And I posted it to my page that is securely held by Meta. On Instagram, I post to Facebook as well. I'm also daily posting my memories on Facebook. The reason I do this is to show that this is a consistent, unbroken warning to that West Australian Labor Party government. I have followed all international standards and have not resorted to anything that could be described as terrorist activity. In my consideration, the failure to acknowledge these accusations is an admission of removal from the Australian federal government system. Western Australia, in my determination, should now be considered as a rogue state that is participating in totalitarian tactics, more than likely backed by China and more than likely backed by terrorist organisations such as Hamas. Hamas is very well known for using hospitals to do their dirty work, to hide weapons, to hide their hostages, to shield themselves from the fact that this processing that I am describing and have myself experienced is proof that the Western Australian government is doing the same thing with its own funds and with federal funds. This should be an immediate and all-encompassing focal point of the entire country right now, but it's not. Now, how in this day and age, I've maintained myself in the digital environment. I've done this to shield myself of having accusations behind in what I consider enemy lines in a state that has been stolen from Australia, covertly installed this processing facility in its place. So I've remained online so that no one can accuse me of plotting or terrorism or anything violent, yet I have still had these accusations labelled at me, whilst clearly stating that. And there is a firm evidence base within my social media posts and the timing of my imprisonment and my suspended sentence and then my community service, all these things, and my business shut down. Where do you go from here? That's my question. Where and why have we become reliant on these algorithms that nobody understands? Nobody. I've listened to a podcast this morning where a huge portion of the argument was about the algorithms, and then they kind of settled on, oh, well, we probably should understand more, but let's get down to the nitty-gritty. What's popular? Have we come to a society that is functioning, and these digital environments are more and more leading us towards what we know and what we don't know, and what the current order of the world is. Most cases is coming from the digital space via an algorithm that we do not understand, and via an algorithm that most people, when it comes down to it, will at some level say is to do with popularity. Popularity. Now, popularity is pretty much the worst possible metric that you could use for ordering a society, especially a society of human beings that love to do the wrong thing, provably. Like most of our religious books and historic laws and things are to prevent humans that like to do the wrong thing causing too much trouble by doing too much of the wrong thing. Yet we've ordered our entire world system around an algorithm that is directing towards popularity. The extent of popularity and the negative effects that can come to it, the best example I can think of is Nazi Germany. This was a populist movement that captured the entire country. Now, that was the right time and it was the right place and it had the right person. I'm not saying right, but for this phenomenon to occur. But what it didn't have was an algorithm that encouraged this. In some ways it did, but that existed in a time when there were political organisations, political opposition, that all could have a say in what was going on. In this complicated time, we're going to have odd things being expressed because we're in a very new time that nobody understands. There should be voices from so many different people being heard right now, and there are not, and there especially isn't in Western Australia. I have not heard one major political party in Western Australia even address the mandates or the vaccines being potentially harmful and a potential massive mistake. Yet most popular culture people across the globe, the most popular spokesman for this time, it's almost daily on their lips, and not just from one side, but from both sides. And we haven't had either political leader, whether it's Roger Cook or the opposition leader Basil Zemplis, or even the Nationals leader Shane Love, address this. Western Australia is so far outside of the conversation that it is being swallowed up by our enemies. We've got Andrew Forrest, like a preacher, declaring to the people of Western Australia that they are in a utopia when he employs and has been responsible for this out-of-control urban development, this urban sprawl, this unsustainable resource extraction empire, which hand in hand with the West Australian Labor Party has ushered the West Australian people into the largest concentration camp known to man. Not only have my well thought out, well executed, constant exposure and investigation into this, not only has it been completely ignored, but whilst publicly stating that I was issuing this to military intelligence because of its flow-on effects and its dangerous precedent towards an immigration-based policy that is using newly emergent atheistic concepts around marriage and family to position an unknowing cohort of mainly women into betraying loyalties to their very own country or to their adopted country. In my case, their adopted country, where my children's mother was not even a citizen when we separated. We were never married. Not even a citizen when we separated. And her and her husband were able to completely destroy my business, completely destroy my reputation, send me to maximum security prison, and then forced me, with the combined force of my sister who works for the government and my mother who has been subsidised and paid by welfare by the government for 50 years, has forced me into exile to the state of my father's birth. This was while I was publicly stating on this platform what I was doing. Far more so than anyone with like the little Channel 9 or 7 or West Australian badge on their microphone. I literally had the logo of military intelligence, the intelligence MI5 for the entire United Kingdom. The United Kingdom, the King Charles, which sits on the top of our constitutional monarchy because of the dangerous levels of totalitarianism I was seeing in my home state, and this all went on. So how many states are there in the federal government at the moment? Anthony Albanese, how many states are you governing in this system that brings... It is in direct opposition to the founding documents of both the United Kingdom and of Australia in turn. The Constitution, all those systems were all backed on the Christian Bible. And in Australia, that was a Church of England Bible, in which the main Christian, Christ, the main proponent of that Bible, was an individual who was killed for opposing a totalitarian state. What more evidence need there be that this is total atheist, just like pharmaceutical transhumanist hell? Their whole system, their whole prison system, I've seen it for myself, their whole political system revolves around this pharmaceutical intervention and this atheistic approach. This is what Mao did in China, and it is in Australia, and it is already so confident in its actions that it just continues on. While I'm sitting on a wall. Ready? Now look, there's a wall looking out at a perfectly good harbour in a state of the federal government of Australia, daily sending this to the West Australian Labor Party on the same platform that they used as evidence to imprison me in a maximum security prison with accusations of violence. So it's good enough to put a father of three, business owner, someone who's looked after his elderly father, someone who's looked after his mentally ill mother for his entire life and had to dig himself out of the indoctrination by both her and by the system in order to make these observations of something that is crucial because it is killing and destroying lives every single day. And this is all going on. And yet all they need to do is just not acknowledge it. But it's on the same platform, Premier, Mr. Cook. It's in the same federal government, under the same constitution. And what I want to know, because that's a wall right there, right? Probably at low tide, I could jump off that wall and kill myself. I'm not going to. Don't worry. But I want to know exactly how many times I could send the message saying, I'm going to kill myself, I'm going to jump off that wall, before the West Australian Labor Party would stop me. And I want to know how many times while I'm in Tasmania making this statement, and I want to know how many times while I'm in Perth perhaps on the Narrows Bridge trying to hit one of the pylons on the way down. How many times, Mr. Premier, would it take for a person to say that before you, as the former health minister, would intervene, especially if that person was critical of your policies, which in a lot of cases they would be. If that was the last resort they'd gotten to, was jumping off a bridge because your system had let them down, how many replies to the West Australian government or previously to yourself, Mr. Roger Cook, at Roger Cook on Instagram, and previously before that at Mark McGowan on Instagram, how many posts would it take? Furthermore to that, how many people are already dead? How many suicide letters do we already have on these platforms? Wow, that was pretty cool. If you heard that, that was a flock of pink and grey galahs that just flew by. How many? Why? Because they didn't have enough followers to matter. That is the system they've built. In order to be addressed by the West Australian Labor Party, you have to have a number above your little face on your profile that reflects your actual importance to the West Australian Labor Party in order for them to respond to you. They place their flag, they place their logo, they place everything there, they direct all of their important information there. That is meant to be, in the digital space, that is their office. That's their office window. And I should know because I've installed Windows for a long, long time. And I want you to tell me how it isn't your front window. And I want you to tell me how I haven't posted thousands probably now of letters to your door. And I want you to tell me how that's different to what Martin Luther did when he posted his letter to the church door and started the Protestant Reformation all those years ago, which led to the formation of the Church of England, which led to the flourishing of the British Empire, which led to the colonisation of Australia, which led to our legal systems that we all enjoy, that you sit at the top of. How many letters, Mr. Premier, does it take to get a reply in this day and age? And how the hell are you going to explain this to the rest of Australia when they very shortly ask you, what the hell are you doing?